Hey guys, it's Trish from Mangtas. Don't miss great tech stories from our guests and our hosts, Jackie Nimeng and Wato Del Barre. Only here at Mangtas Nation.
Welcome to Mangtas Nation Season 2. This season is all about tech of the future. We'll be sharing real-world experiences and featuring astounding guests to help guide you in your tech journey. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
The show starts right now.
Hello, everyone. Here's to another day of bringing about learning and inspiration through tech stories from today's star of the show. Are you ready to hear from him? Well, our guest is a certified supply chain and organizational change professional and a professor of project and supply chain management at Penn State University. He has over 20 years of experience working with organizations around the world on business performance improvement, organizational change, and enterprise-wide digital transformation initiatives. He is a 5-time TEDx speaker where he discussed emerging technologies such as blockchain and artificial intelligence. Now, without further ado, listeners, let us welcome Dr. Justin Goldston. Hey, Justin, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We're so glad to have you here with us today, and we're actually excited to have this talk because you have a very interesting career involving supply chain and emerging technologies and sustainability, which is what our podcast is all about. And I'm sure we're going to touch on a lot of those points later on. We might even have to stop you at a certain point.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you will.
But before that, Justin, please just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Currently I always say in the Web2 world, I'm a professor of project and supply chain management at Penn State University. I'm also an advisory board member and visiting professor at Georgetown and USC, University of Southern California, where my research is primarily based on supply chain management, sustainability, and artificial intelligence and blockchain. And I think the premise of this discussion is going to go into, people say, what is your discipline? You're all over the place. I say, I'm not all over the place because this is all systems thinking. Everything is integrated. Supply chain management is just a massive system, right? Integrating all departments within an organization to orchestrate together, right? To create a seamless, operation or organization, right? Now, within that, you also have technology. You have ERP applications. I implemented ERP systems for like 15 years. But within ERP systems, you have these additional technologies such as blockchain, such as artificial intelligence, and you are using those tools to create a more sustainable world. Mm-hmm. So you can integrate all of those disciplines where on the surface they look to be separated, but they're all integrated, and that's systems thinking.
Beautiful. Yeah, I never thought a majority of our listeners probably yeah, how can these be interconnected? Like, okay, supply chain and blockchain, they both have chain. But yeah, I mean, for regular non-techie people, that's that's the thought. Yeah, you hear these words, but you never connect both of them. But what made you interested in this field, Justin?
I would say that I've always been a tech geek, I would say. And, like I said, I was implementing enterprise resource planning applications for a number of years. If you've heard of SAP or seen the SAP advertisements, I was actually down at the SAP Sapphire. I was an influencer at the SAP Sapphire conference a couple weeks ago down in Florida, where we had, I think, 6 or 7,000 people, talking about. And actually, it's interesting in that, the primary theme of the SAP Sapphire conference was sustainability. So SAP is doing a lot of amazing work in integrating sustainability within their applications for a number of different industries. So, I've been in the tech space for a number of years, and then I was actually teaching in the Jack Welch Management Institute and in the executive MBA program. And one of the students there said, "Dr. Goldston, I read this article where they're saying blockchain is going to disrupt the supply chain industry." So, I held some Bitcoin back then, and that was the primary use case that I was working with in terms of blockchain. But then that sent me down now a 5-year rabbit hole in terms of this technology, and doing that research led me into some postdoctoral work at Cornell. And then that also led to 5 TED Talks on blockchain. So I always refer to myself as a blockchain OG. I don't say that I'm not a crypto guy. I'm in the technology. But I always say that I'm an OG because I was talking about Bitcoin during the bear market, right? So it's all about the technology, and some of you may have heard about the Terra Luna collapse, and this is not financial advice, but you have to be a technologist to understand the technology, because these cryptocurrencies are nothing but speculation. Most of them, they have usability behind them, and once we have this adoption that we're looking to have, then those cryptocurrencies will be more stable, like the stock market. Well, the stock market's not that stable now, but you get what I'm saying.
And I do have a little follow-up on what you just said, right? So you got blockchain, you got AI, and you got sustainability, and you apply it to supply chain management. What's unique about supply chain management that makes you truly focus on that specific problem, as opposed to combining those 3 aspects to another problem? I'm quite intrigued.
I would say, from my experience in working with organizations as a management consultant, I always say I've seen the good, bad, and dysfunctional, right? And being in the supply chain industry, I always say that from a business perspective, I trust no one. Just putting it out there, right? Now, whenever you integrate blockchain, for example, let's back up and say what blockchain is. Blockchain is a distributed ledger that is transparent to everyone. Yep. So let's just say that you have a massive Excel spreadsheet, that all these transactions are hitting this Excel spreadsheet, and everyone in the world can see all of those transactions, right? So the transparency, and you can't change those transactions. They're immutable. They can't be changed. So the transparency and the mutability of the blockchain is what makes it a great candidate for the supply chain industry to ensure the authenticity of your products, to ensure where your products are coming from, to ensure that the actors within the supply chain network are acting ethically. So when it comes from a sustainability perspective, in the United States, we just had the SEC to propose climate change standards, right? So now, if those transactions are put on a blockchain, now we can ensure that all of those organizations are reporting correctly, right? From a societal perspective, in terms of sustainability, we have a big problem in terms of forced labor, in terms of child labor, right? With the blockchain, if you are transparent in the source of your raw materials and the source of your goods, then we can ensure that you are fighting or mitigating the risk of child labor and forced labor. If you look at artificial intelligence in blockchain, if you're forecasting products, we have a big problem within the supply chain right now. We can't get raw materials, we can't get products, we can't get chips, right? So if we have artificial intelligence and we use this tool that we refer to as demand sensing, we can actually pull data from social media platforms, and we can get the buyer sentiment, if you will. We can get the thoughts and what the people are talking about on social media, and then we can feed that information into an ERP system, and we can get near real-time forecasts so that we can forecast more accurately, And from a sustainability perspective, if we get those near real-time forecasts by leveraging artificial intelligence, now we're able to reduce waste in our blockchains. Now we don't have to order as many products because we're not speculating like we did in the past. We have the tools to reduce the speculation, which in turn is going to reduce how much inventory we purchase.
Very, very exciting.
That's your question?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think the problem space is complex enough, especially given how supply chain applies to so many types of supply chains, right? Are you limited to SAP? Are you working with other partners beyond SAP as part of this? So how does your research look like?
So SAP is just one example. SAP is the largest ERP platform out there, so that's just why I use that one. A lot of people can relate to SAP. A lot of people see the advertisements, but you also have Oracle. You have organizations such as Infor that are ERP providers. But ERP is just one aspect of it. So you also have organizations that are operating in the Web3 world, in a decentralized Web3 world. And creating so there's one project that I spoke with about a month and a half ago called Altered State Machine. So Altered State Machine, if you've heard of non-fungible tokens, NFTs, you also have Altered State Machine. They're creating non-fungible intelligence. So what that means is that they have something called AI brains, where they have a brain in the form of an NFT. And you train that brain on certain processes, and now you can have that brain and you can put it into an ape, for example, right? And that ape can now be a teacher in the metaverse. Now that ape can be a metaverse assistant. Now that ape can be a stock trader. It can be a crypto trader. Because you're training that brain on machine learning and artificial intelligence, right? So it's learning that information just like they do in the stock market. Artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of cases, and a number of cases, where artificial intelligence and machine learning is used in the stock market to make trades.
And operating as an independent entity, right. But in the format of an NFT. That's interesting. Never heard of that concept before.
Very interesting.
So maybe
yes, it's groundbreaking.
Yeah. If I take a step back now, right? So you are going into blockchain, AI, and I guess a term that's commonly used is emerging tech. You also mentioned Web3, right? We used the term earlier, tech of the future. I think what will be good for our listeners as well, especially the less technical, to kind of hear your thoughts on the definition, because I know it's controversial, but maybe your thoughts on what a good definition would be of, on one hand, emerging tech, and on the other hand, Web3.
So I use the term emerging tech because it's kind of like not really the buzzword, but something that everyone can relate to. We say emerging tech, but artificial intelligence and blockchain is here. It's here, right? Now, when we say Web3 is the next version of the internet. Web3 is the decentralization of the internet. In my opinion, Web3 is this collision course, if you will, of the Internet of Things, of blockchain, of artificial intelligence, all converged together. Edge computing. I think that quantum computing is further out. It's further out, right? But, we're going to start talking about quantum computing in a couple of years. Now, when we talk about everyone's going to be in AR and VR, I still think we're 5 years away from that, right? Now, I said last year we're about 5 to 10 years away from general artificial intelligence. I actually backtrack a little bit. We're about 2 years away from that. It's moving that quickly. And I always say that I did some postdoc work on blockchain at Cornell, 3 years ago. I would say 80% of the things that we talked about is obsolete. The space, there's things that come up every single day. And I tell people, I got a PhD now. I'm just scratching the surface of this stuff.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with it. It's literally impossible for one individual to keep up with all the stuff that's going on right now.
Which is extremely exciting. But you touched upon something which I find very interesting. You say general AI is available within 2 years. Now let's maybe take a step back and make sure we have a common understanding. What's your definition of that, of general AI?
So where we're at with artificial intelligence right now is artificial, and let me back up. Artificial intelligence and blockchain. The most important thing I want to say on here, artificial intelligence and blockchain, the Internet of Things, they are nothing but tools. Mm-hmm. They are not the silver bullet. They are not going to save the world. They are nothing but tools, right? Humans have to create these protocols in blockchain. Humans have to create these algorithms for artificial intelligence. Because humans create them, there's risk, there's ethical risk, right? There's biases, there's discrimination. There's tons of stories out there about that, right? And in terms of, so right now, artificial intelligence is a tool to assist us in our day-to-day activities, in our managerial decision making. When we go to general artificial intelligence, I always say think C3PO in Star Wars, think iRobot, right? And I say that because a part of me is if we do not regulate it, if we do not keep a close eye on it, all you have to do is upset one developer. And we have a big problem, big problem, right? Elon Musk is not. I'm an Elon freak. Just putting it out there. Elon Musk is not a fan of the government, but even Elon Musk says the government has to regulate AI, right? And I will say that, God forbid, if there is another world war. I might be getting a little dark, but if there's another world war, it's going to be with artificial intelligence.
And the definition of general AI, though, just to make sure on the same page, is somebody to independently behave like humans and take it even further.
Correct. Correct.
And your worry is that they are going to control us. So we need to regulate how exactly we put that in place. And you feel that
if it does not get regulated,
you feel that that's 2 years away. Do you have some specific insights on why you say that?
I have specific insights in the fact of when I said it was 5 years away, the developments that happened from the time I said that to now has been accelerated tremendously beyond my thoughts.
Well, Justin, people have been working from home. They've had a lot of time in their hands and they've been more productive. It probably helped speed up things.
Yeah, COVID accelerated this whole thing.
Plus, probably the AI tools are developing AI themselves, right? So that's also accumulating, right? Self-programming.
Yeah. So perfect example. So if the viewers have heard of GitHub, yeah. So GitHub is the largest repository of language, programming languages and things like that. So there's a tool out there called GitHub Copilot. Yeah. So GitHub Copilot leverages our artificial intelligence and machine learning. You can write one line of code, GitHub Copilot will finish it.
There you go.
So another going back whenever I said general artificial intelligence was going to be 5 years away, I also said that AI is not going to take over jobs. They're only going to assist people. Whenever GitHub Copilot came out, developers,
yeah,
that's another worry.
Yeah. Well, worry. Yeah, that means we can focus on other things. Hopefully.
That is true. So that all comes down to how leaders of organizations are going to leverage these tools. Yeah. Are they going to increase? Are some organizations going to increase the utilization and efficiency of their employees? Or are they going to replace their employees with GitHub Copilot, for example, and then just have a few people look at the code, review code?
Yeah,
Just have like code reviewers.
yeah, but you could argue the other side, right? So we are, for instance, a big fan of no code. Our entire platform is built on no code, which means not only can we, and I still feel it's another abstraction layer, just increases efficiency. You still need to be an software engineer to really understand how to do it better, but the efficiency level goes up. Now, does that mean that we're going to get rid of people? Of course not. It's a matter of how do you then utilize talents differently, right? It's like saying, when ATM machines came in, people were no longer manually handing money, right? But that means those people could do something much more productive then, right? So that's really up to us, I guess, to figure out how we then develop and make sure we do the real value add that machines no longer can. It feels like this is something that has been happening for many, many decades already. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it has been happening, and you also have to consider like the spaces we're in. In certain spaces, in certain industries, these things aren't gonna take on for a while. I'm not gonna put a year time stamp on it. I'm not gonna put a year stamp on it. A while, right? You have manufacturing organizations that are still working on pen and paper. So it just depends. It depends on the industry in terms of how quickly these types of tools are going to accelerate. But again, even in those other industries, the most important, regardless of the power of artificial intelligence, regardless of the transparency that blockchain provides, the most important asset to an organization is the people.
Agree.
Most important assets to the organization is the people. So you can have all these amazing tools, right? But if you don't have people that believe in an organization that will review that code, if you don't have people to support the businesses, if you don't even in the Web3 space, we can say that everything runs on the code, right? But you also need community builders for the community of the organizations, right? Yeah. So if you don't have humans that are building that community, that are happy with the organization, you fail.
Ultimately, we always say the same, like companies are ultimately still the people, right? Regardless of what you put in place. Now, I'd like to touch upon one topic. So I couldn't agree more with you. Like the term emerging tech, I feel is a bit, one, it feels small, and two, it doesn't feel quite right because it's here, right? Now, when you talk about Web3, and I'd like to hear your opinion on that. So we got, AI, you got physical type of stuff like IoT and wearables, VR, right? AR metaverses, blockchain to a certain extent, even big data behind it. All of that converging, right? You mentioned Web3, can't agree more. But the internet is built on protocols. It's built on a way. It's two-dimensional and the rules that we follow. We have nothing in place today that allows us, there's no standard on how all of this is going to converge. So my question is really Web3. It sounds like it's very far away, if that's your definition.
It's very far away, and the one thing I say is I'm super excited about participating right now, with the metaverse and things like that. So as a matter of fact, if you Google the metaverse as a digital leviathan, that's the first academic case study that myself, along with two other graduate researchers, wrote. So the thing I explained to them, and the thing I explained to the founder of the project which we looked at, we're writing the book on Web3. We're defining the future of Web3. Everyone listening to this interview right now, if you're contributing to Web3, you're writing the future. You're writing the history book, right? Because once people understand, the big problem right now and the thing we're trying to figure out is how do we successfully on-ramp the masses to Web3? Once people understand that you own the internet, that the internet is now decentralized, it's not going to be controlled by the Metas, by the Googles, by the Twitters. they're going to be on board. If the people understand that they're going to have a voice, that they're going to be able to govern the internet, to govern these websites, to govern the metaverses, they're going to be on board. So when we talk about the metaverse, if you go to websites and you browse clothing and things like that, you're going to go into a metaverse and go into a building, and then you're going to see this 3D NFT of this dress or these shoes or whatever. That's why Nike bought Artifact a couple months ago, right? So they're going to have 3D shoes that you're going to be able to try on with your avatar, right? And then you're going to be able to purchase the physical shoes. A lot of these Web3 NFT projects now are doing that, where they airdrop me an NFT. I could have kept it for the metaverse, but I burned it, which means I got rid of it, and I got the physical hoodie. So there's a lot of creative things that are going on. So if you're an artist, if you're a clothing designer, you have that, and now you're able to build your community. You're able to contribute to your community. You're able to get community feedback. And going back to the sustainability perspective, I can create these NFTs, and I can get an idea of the designs that people like. And instead of producing all of these clothes for this season, like H&M, like Zara, that contributes to a ton of waste. You can do the research. Don't listen to me. You can do the research, right? Mm-hmm. You can get an idea of how people are behaving to or accepting those designs in the metaverse, and then you can do your production run, which is going to reduce waste in the supply chains, right? And then it's going to also be a positive from an environmental perspective.
This is where sustainability
I think we can touch
comes
upon
in.
Exactly. And I guess we'll double probably the follow-up question, and Jackie, I'll let you ask that one. I still have one follow-up, and the one thing I can't wrap my head around is how are we all going to collaborate to create the convergence and have a set of rules in place together? Because one thing we don't do well in the world is work together and really agree to standards and comply. And just out of goodness. I've never seen it work. So how will that work in reality? That's the question I keep on thinking about. Like, I love everything about it. But the good thing, I guess the challenge with the internet, there is some central oversight, but at least it's a protocol everyone adheres to. How will we go to like a common standard where all of this converges? How would you approach this, Doctor?
That's the $1 million question. But there's a few things, and the thing is, like with these decentralized autonomous organizations, these DAOs, we run a DAO, SITTech DAO, in the education space. And one thing we say is this is a big social experiment. It's a big social experiment to see how humans are going to collaborate with each other to build the future. But we have what we refer to as governance tokens. Mm-hmm. And then we're seeing where some projects are having issues with these governance tokens and how they have created their tokenomics, where people can do essentially hostile takeovers, right? Now, you also have projects where we have quadratic funding and quadratic voting, where you make things more fair. So now people with the money, the large organizations, they can't benefit just by throwing money around, right? Mm-hmm. Quadratic voting changes that. So that's the beauty with the Web3 space, in that anyone can contribute, anyone can test in this social experiment. But to answer your question, I think that we just have to test it out and see what happens. Now there's some risk to that, there's some fear to that, but that's how the world was built. The world was built on invention. This is an invention. There's a ton of inventions going on right now. Let's see how it works out. Now, again, people will disagree with me, But that's what we're doing and testing out in the Web3 space right now.
And before we go into sustainability, so quadratic voting, could you zoom into that, please? Sounds fascinating.
So it depends. So quadratic voting. It depends. There's a bunch. There's a bit. It's like a 30-minute conversation in itself. There's a few different flavors to quadratic voting, where it depends on one. It can depend on how many people come into the vote, and then it also can depend upon how much voting power you would have to that particular vote. But then there's an algorithm built behind it. So if you Google quadratic voting, look for a video that Vitalik Buterin that put up, because he's a founder of Ethereum, and he does a good explanation. He does a better explanation of quadratic voting than I can.
We will include the link into the
Look him up
recording.
and indeed put it
Yeah.
on the show notes. Well, yeah, that's all very interesting and very new for us, Justin. Well, for me, anyway. But yeah, I wanted to touch up a bit on, you've had several TED Talks, and one of them that particularly interested me, among the others, was how blockchain will positively change our everyday lives. And we're talking a lot about emerging tech. But in a nutshell, how is this possible, or how can this be made possible?
The way in which we're going to do this is that we all have to do this together. So there's a saying in the Web3 space called "WAGMI." We're all going to make it, right? The only way we're all going to make it is together. Right. So going back to your point where you said, history has proven that we don't work well together. We have to find a way. And another thing is that I've had this conversation many times where, I did my PhD work in leadership and organizational change. I teach supply chain management. Those two disciplines are changing as we speak. COVID, the pandemic, has changed the way we operate from a supply chain perspective. With COVID, with people working from home, with the great resignation, it has changed leadership theories. Right? So because of this, we have to rethink how we live. We have to rethink how we collaborate. We have to rethink how we look at sustainability. I always ask people, I say, give me your definition of sustainability. You ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers. Yeah. But that's what we need to have, because that way people are going to focus on their initiatives. Like a lot of people, when they say sustainability, they look at it from an environmental perspective. Me, I look at sustainability from a societal perspective. I need to focus on the society. I need to focus on the people. They need to focus on the environment, right? That way, from a systems thinking perspective, we can make a change in the world. Now, in order to do that, it's my thought that we need to leverage technology to see how we're working toward making a sustainable change in the world. We need to leverage blockchain to ensure that people are acting as they say they're going to act, ethically and sustainably, right? So again, those are only going to be the tools, but I feel that those tools are very important to our progress. Because I always say that there's numerous studies out there that if we continue to act business as usual from a sustainability perspective, they're saying there's going to be an environmental collapse by 2040.
Or earlier. It could very well.
Some say 2035.
Yeah.
So that's why the sustainability aspect is very, very, very important. And it's not just the environment, it's a societal aspect as well. Because let's just say take the environment out of it. If you look at inflation right now, people are going to get into dire straits. It's going to be issues, or it's going to be issues around the world. Gas is $6 in some parts of the U.S.
Here in Europe, it
Right?
has increased to a couple of cents in a couple of cents in just a couple of weeks even. And that's big. That's big for us
Yeah.
here.
Increases a use case for electronic vehicles, huh?
Yeah. Elon.
But cost me $10. Cost me $10 to charge a Tesla. But, but that's where we have to leverage these technologies. We have to continue to build upon the body of knowledge to move this forward. I have with anything there's going to be risks, right? With anything there's going to be concerns. But yes, like I said, there's concerns for me from an artificial intelligence perspective. But if we leverage artificial intelligence for the societal good, if we leverage artificial intelligence for the global good, we can indeed lead to a more sustainable world.
And I think you made a good point there, right? Sometimes you just need to take steps in the direction, right? Learn and adapt from there, right? Not overanalyze, just go and learn. And we
Do it. That's me.
and we've seen this in some of your work, that you seem to be a big fan of the agile approach and methodology. Maybe you want to share a couple of things about this and how you apply this, or how you recommend this to people, especially in this field.
So I would say that so during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of talks within supply chain management, and the word of the pandemic from a supply chain perspective was resilience, right? How are we going to make it out of this pandemic from a supply chain perspective? And also the underlying approach was agile. Right? How could we use, just hypothetically, how could we use a traditional waterfall approach from a supply chain management perspective when everything was changing by the day? You had to be agile. You had to be able to pivot. I've always done that. I was first introduced to agile whenever I was consulting with Intel, because Intel uses an agile methodology a lot. And of course, it's used a lot within the technology space. But from a supply chain perspective and teaching project management, I always say nothing ever goes as planned. So why would you? So traditionally, why would you go with the waterfall approach? There's a lot of research coming out within higher education, on this hybrid model. Where you're blending agile and waterfall. And really, in the reality, if you peel back the onion, U.S. government, they use agile. But if you peel back the onion, they use a hybrid approach. If you look at, not unless you're very, 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 very disciplined, if you claim you use an agile approach, you use parts of waterfall in your methodology. In my opinion, again, my thoughts.
Can you give an example of that?
People
Can
argue
you give an
that.
example of what part of a waterfall you would use as part of it?
So you would have something like the U.S. government. The U.S. government, they say they use agile, but they still have a project plan, right? They have a project plan, and then they'll actually have the stand up meetings every morning.
Got it.
Right? I'm like, that's not agile, But if you're going from waterfall to agile, that phased approach, I think is the best approach. Instead of cutting off waterfall and then moving to agile.
Cold turkey.
You gotta kind of take the pacifier away.
And it's
if you
also
will.
very much a philosophy, right? There's no such thing as the perfect agile either, right? It's more a mindset more than anything,
Correct.
right? Ultimately, you still need to commit to deadlines, and you need to have a roadmap, and I guess, are you gonna be self-managing people or gonna put a project manager there? I guess there's a philosophy change. And I guess especially in a government, it will take time for you to evolve, right? I've been part of organizations where it took years before it even got, I don't know, maybe 20% there. I agree with you, 100%. Yeah.
It also depends on the environment, the culture, and the people. Like Intel, flawless, no problem. They're tech people. They get it. They understand it, right? If I try to implement agile in a manufacturing company with 100 employees that are just now getting off of pen and paper, I'm gonna have some problems. So you also have to assess, if you're considering agile, you also have to assess your environment and your people and your culture of your organization. If you're trying to implement agile in a union,
and the leadership, right? It has to start from the top, right? With the right backing.
Yeah, and the one thing I always say, in the words of the late great Jack Welch, he always says you have to go to each employee in the organization and you have to lay out, where we're going, how we're going to get there, what's your impact in this project, and how it's going to positively impact you. If you tell each employee how this initiative is going to positively impact them, that's how you're going to get adoption in an organization.
Not with the web.
And that's one miss a lot of organizations, a lot of leaders miss. They think that a lean, agile, they think an agile project is a project management, initiative. They think, AI and blockchain ERP is a technology initiative, for the CIO. That's when those projects fail. The most successful projects that I've been a part of, the directors and the vice president. I had a president of a manufacturing organization. He sat in on every single one of my ERP sessions. He would do work, but then he would listen because I would say something, and he would flip through his notes and said, "Justin, you said 3 weeks ago this, and this." I said, "Oh, you are listening, aren't you?"
He's a big fan.
But the people see that. The people see that. Those people walk the talk, and that success was demonstrated by that leadership. You know?
And like for people, normal or regular people who are listening, maybe listening in to this episode right now, Justin, and thinking about, we've been talking about sustainability as well the past couple of minutes. As an individual, if you want to affect change or join in this bandwagon of change and on the road to sustainability, what would be the best advice you can give to these people? So
I would say the first step is to Google the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Now, stay with me here. Google UN Sustainable Development Goals. Look at those SDGs. You pick your top 2 SDGs, right? And then you share your top 2 SDGs with your peers or someone else, and then ask them what their top 2 SDGs are, right? If you're a leader of an organization, you pick your top 2 SDGs, you share that with your executives within your organization, and then you all come to a consensus of what you think the organization's top 2 SDGs are, and then you run a survey of your employees, of your workforce, to see what the consensus is of the organization's top 2 SDGs, right? If the executives' top 2 SDGs aren't aligned with the workforce's SDGs, then maybe you should reassess your mission and vision statements, right? So then, personally, your personal mission and vision statement is going to come out of those UN SDGs. And then also going back, we're about to land this plane, going back to my initial discussion. If you look at the UN SDGs, you'll see that those UN SDGs are all integrated. And that's what? systems thinking.
I'm out of here.
Fantastic. Now, well, for businesses or organizations, Justin, who are interested in connecting with you, where can they best find you, or how can they best get in touch with you?
Best place to find me is going to be on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can also go to our website, sydtech.ai, sydtek.ai. Have a lot of great information there in terms of blockchain. And then you can also go to my personal website, justingoldston.com. There's I'd say about 60 or 70 presentations, conference presentations. My TED Talks are up there, and there's a number of YouTube or a number of podcast episodes there where I talk about sustainability, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and of course, systems thinking.
Second mic drop. So, again, thank you, Justin. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure Walter as well. We've learned a lot today from this podcast. Thank you so much for being our guest on today's show. Thank you to everyone for listening, and well, again, we wish you all the success in your career, in your field of expertises, and hopefully we can all indeed work and collaborate towards a more sustainable future through emerging tech, which we don't have a lot of choice. If we do, we're already leaning towards that, or we're already on there. So, but still.
Yeah. Absolutely. And welcome to Web3, everybody.
Thanks again. Once again, this is Jacqueline Gemach.
VaultvDr.
And stay tuned for the next episode of Mangtas
Justin Goldston.
with Justin Goldston.
Thank you for tuning in to Mangtas Nation. Mangtas, your curated marketplace for B2B outsourcing solutions. Follow our social media pages to know more about us. Sign up as a client or sign up as a vendor and be a part of this global B2B marketplace. Join us at www.mangtas.com.